Welcome to another quality professional learning opportunity that you get to take with us in the GLAG 21 conference. We've reached Thursday. Our essential question of the day is, how can I take action to support youth global engagement? And this conversation is going to be on point. This conversation is going to be powerful. This conversation is going to be pragmatic because we like to mind our P's and Q's as we go forward. So first, my name's Daniel Foster, and with Melanie Foster, we are the co-founders of the Global Teach Ag Network and get to work with great partners and presenters to help empower and uplift educators. So we're excited to be here, right, Mel?
Absolutely.
And the reason we're excited is because who our presenters are. Now, we have a brand new global learning patron that joined our team of 27 this year called Growing Hope Globally. They have a side event. I strongly encourage you to seek out their social media website. There's some powerful tools for all educators to use and opportunities to grow the impact that we want to make in the world around us. But as we explore and talk about growing lasting solutions to hunger, we get to talk with Alex Morse, Regional Director, Latin American and Caribbean programs for Growing Hope Globally. Now, fun things about Alex: lots of education, lots of preparation and training from the Seattle area. But what he told me prior that I thought you would all enjoy is that he didn't see a pig until, what did you say, you were 15? And self-declared or labeled. I don't know if it was self-declared or a forced label of city
It
boy.
was labeled. It was labeled.
we had some terms getting thrown around when he started working. But Alex comes to Growing Hope Globally to learn more about international agriculture because he worked in the Dominican Republic and saw urban poverty and wanted to go to the source of where urban poverty might be, which would be rural poverty, and how can we improve those lives and uplift them as an inspiration point. So that's an exciting background, and we'll learn more as we get to the end on questions. And he's joined by Ellie Steensma. Now, Ellie, I'm excited about because she is a second-year teacher. Now, she currently say that she is a science teacher in biology, but in her heart, I know she's an agriculture teacher, excited because she is starting a brand new school-based ag education program with an FFA chapter at Mount Vernon Christian School in the Pacific Northwest of Washington. So we're excited to have Ellie here. She's going to share, as a new upcoming beginning educator, how some of the tools helped her help students design growing, lasting solutions to hunger, and how she's choosing to use and integrate it in her program. Together, they're going to have a great presentation. Then Melanie and I get to come back at the end and ask a few questions. So, Ellie and Alex, thank you. A great professional development experience around global learning in agriculture online.
But we realized that people were really excited about having these conversations
because agriculture is so different in different countries.
Ladies and gentlemen around the world.
With that, I think we're just about ready to get things kicked off.
And now for the good stuff.
So welcome to Growing Lasting Solutions to Hunger. As Daniel said, my name's Alex Morse. I work with Growing Hope Globally. I just want to start by grounding this conversation in a couple of statistics. First, I think it's important to recognize that there's 690 million people around the world that are suffering from hunger. And the majority of them, about 80%, either live in rural areas or depend on agriculture. That's really important to recognize because it shapes the way that we're called to respond to hunger in those cases. If the context is rural, then it means that charity and handouts probably aren't going to lead to lasting long-term solutions to hunger. It's going to help respond to that immediate need, but it's not going to make the long-term difference that I think we're hoping to see. And so Growing Hope Globally responds through agricultural training, and even more importantly is community empowerment. And I want to share a little bit more about that. So I think the other thing that's important to recognize is that about 80% of the people suffering from hunger live in rural areas and depend on agriculture. So that means that when we're responding in that kind of context, we need to be thinking about long-term lasting solutions. That's not going to be handouts or food aid. It's going to include agricultural training and work around empowerment. And for all of you as agricultural instructors, that's really exciting because it means that you have the opportunity to start preparing your students to make a global difference. I want to share a little bit about this farmer in the picture. His name's Andres, and he's a community leader in Northern Colombia in the Sincelejo department. And I got to meet him a couple of years ago. He has just some great fields of cassava and yams, some varieties of some white fleshed sweet potatoes. And he would tell you that his life has been transformed by the program that he's participating in. Not only does he have bumper crops, but his community's been able to access electricity, get a public school built there for the primary education, and then also get a public health post built. Behind him, there were a lot of people. There was the agronomist that provided him with agricultural training. There was the staff that provided training on advocacy efforts that helped him get connected with a national rural electrification program. There was all the staff people in that local partner organization, people like me that manage grants and oversee programs. And then you have all the other people in nonprofit organizations that do the fundraising, marketing, and communications pieces. It requires a big team. But I think what's important to recognize is Andres is the person that really led those efforts. It was his desire and his vision for his community that led to that lasting change. And as we work with communities on training, they can take those pieces that maybe start with the rural electrification program, and they can start applying them to other pieces as well. Right now, Andres is coordinating with other communities across the region to continue to get investment and to continue to help their communities recover from the conflict that happened in their region in the early 2000s. So I mentioned all these different careers and different people involved in supporting Andres. That's where I'm kind of excited about the SAE for All kit that we've developed around international agricultural development. Hunger is a huge problem facing our world. And that means that we need a really big team of people working to support people like Andres that are the leaders. In the International Agricultural Development Kit that we've developed with NASAE, with FFA instructors, there's some foundational SAE activities that are covered around agricultural literacy, career exploration, personal finance, workplace safety, and employability skills. But there's also focus in those activities to develop some core competencies around being flexible, right? Sometimes we come in and we think that we have a great plan and we recognize that our plan just doesn't make sense in that context and we have to be humble. It focuses on how do you work in multicultural settings or where there's power dynamics. There's a lot of soft skills that are required in order to make a successful international development program work. And this kit helps teachers to begin to introduce some of those topics in the classroom. Also, the part I'm really excited about is the hands-on model for students to get involved. Depending on where your school is based, it might be row crops, it might be livestock, dairy, even farmers markets. But the general idea remains the same. Students work together to gather donations to grow a crop, to harvest the crop and then market it. And then they get to choose the overseas programs that they support. And this is the piece that I have always seen as the coolest part in FFA chapters. For students, especially high school students, to be able to make a gift of $6,000 to $8,000, depending on how successful their project is, they take that as such a serious responsibility, and they start to really look more and more into the programs that we fund. And it's great to hear students debating over whether the program in Haiti that's working on soil health and goats is going to be more successful than this project over in Nicaragua that's maybe working on microfinance. And it gets students to really start wrestling with the question of what makes for good philanthropy, what makes for good investments in international development, and what are the best ways that we can support people that are suffering from hunger so that they can have the dignity of providing for themselves. So that's a little bit about our kit and about what we do. So I want to close with just sharing a little bit about a man named Douglas that I met while traveling in Nicaragua a couple of years ago with some FFA students from Nebraska. I was kind of playing devil's advocate and asking him if it wouldn't just be easier for us to ship him corn. And I loved his answer because he said, it would definitely be easier if somebody sent me food, but what would happen if they decided they wanted to help someone else or someone in another country? What would I do then? So I really like this training and this empowerment piece because it's mine and nobody can take it away from me. There's a recent study done by Series 2030 that looks at how we can make our investments be as impactful as possible. And their number one suggestion was that if we really are serious about ending hunger, we need to begin with empowering the excluded. This means working with the very small farmer, indigenous communities, women, youth, making sure that ag extension services reach them, and that the programs that we're supporting are shaped by them and led by them. And we really try and do that through our international work. We're excited that we have a way for high school students to get connected in with that. So now I want to introduce Ellie. She's a high school science and agriculture instructor in Mount Vernon, Washington. And Ellie, could you just share a little bit about yourself, where you live, and your FFA chapter?
Definitely. Thank you, Alex, for having me on this. And I'm really glad that we can discuss this new project that we're trying out. I was originally born and raised in Washington, so I'm really glad to be back in my home state after attending college in Northwest Iowa at Dordt University. I've always been really passionate about agriculture, and so I'm really thrilled to have this opportunity to get on with this challenge with my students and for them to have the opportunity to learn about agriculture in this way as well. So when Growing Hope Globally approached me with this project idea with doing this SAE activity, I was excited to try it out with my students, especially because my FFA chapter is brand new this year. And so I think this will be a great opportunity for them to be able to grow as a chapter and to just learn more about global agriculture.
And yesterday when we were talking, you had mentioned that you were excited about there being this hands-on project that I think you mentioned that it added some opportunity to connect with the community as well. Can you just share a little bit more about that?
Yeah, like I said, my chapter is fairly new, and so I'm really hoping that this hands-on experience will be a great way for students to get excited about getting involved in FFA and also just get excited about getting involved with the community. Just because this project is so hands-on, it allows for a lot of really exciting experiences for students to be able to see agriculture firsthand and then being able to learn too how that would be expanding towards global perspectives as well and helping them understand how they're actually making a difference, I think will be really exciting for them. And so I'm hoping that this project will be a way to expand my chapter and also just expand connections and network with people around the world too.
Yeah. And are there specific things that you're hoping students will learn from this by being involved in a project that supports global agriculture?
Yeah, I guess, like I said before, I'm just really excited about the opportunity for my students to be able to learn about agricultural literacy. I do have a lot of students in my FFA chapter who are from agricultural backgrounds, but I would say that the majority are not. And I think this will be a great way for students in this school district to be able to become more aware of agriculture across the globe and on world hunger as well. So one of the aspects of the curriculum that I'm really excited about is the concept of agriculture literacy and letting them get to see that perspective through the different activities that are incorporated throughout the curriculum. Particularly, there's one aspect where they get to explore different careers that are connected with agriculture literacy and also with world hunger. And I think that that would be just a really eye-opening experience for a lot of students, especially since most of my students don't come from agriculture backgrounds. So this will be, I think, just an eye-opening experience for them in that way.
Thanks. If you would like to learn more, we hope you'll visit our website, growinghopeglobally.org. We've also included the curriculum as handouts to this presentation. And then every month, Growing Hope Globally hosts an online conversation. It's just a Zoom call, but it's an opportunity to learn more about our work and have any of your questions answered. The next one that we have scheduled is on March 9th at 6:30 p.m. Central Time.
You know, I think it's really interesting to capture the attention of students by focusing on a really compelling global issue of food security and agriculture education, and tying in that really important ag literacy piece that you both mentioned. So I guess, you know, my first question is, I just want to learn a little bit more about the toolkit. And, you know, I think in my experience, I've heard a lot of educators are hesitated to get involved in, you know, teaching and sharing this kind of information with their students because they feel like they don't have a strong background, either in international work or international development. And so does the toolkit, you know, provide an entryway for teachers that maybe have less experience than others?
I think one of the great things about the toolkit is that it has several classroom activities that are fully developed that have external website links and additional resources connected to them. The toolkit also provides quite a bit of background information to help teachers kind of gain some confidence in their knowledge around food security, development programs. And then at the end of the toolkit, there's a lot of additional resources and some additional reading materials that teachers can follow up with. Also, as Growing Hope Globally, we have quarterly webinars that we do that cover really in-depth topics around international agricultural development. And those are all stored and saved on our website. So if a teacher is wanting to learn more and is particularly interested in, you know, what development programs look like, what is food security and what would examples of food security programs be, or even things more like, how is COVID-19 affecting world hunger? We have pre-recorded webinars on our website that kind of cover those activities to help a teacher feel really confident and prepared to share with their students a little bit more in depth on those subjects.
Yeah, that's great. I think that's really great to provide access to those, like I say, that don't feel as confident. And on that note, I do want to point out that I looked at the toolkit and I noticed right away some of the language that was used. And I, you know, really appreciated some of the terms and the way that you characterized, you know, when we take on an international development project and how that should be talked about and characterized. And so I wonder if you would share a little bit of the thought behind some of that language.
I think we want to just be really careful about what our role is when we're supporting an international development program, right? There's a resource on our website that can be used in high school classrooms called the, I think we call it the Global Farmer Experience. And instead of being the people that are making the donation or the people that are implementing the program, it's a simulation that asks you to put yourself in the shoes of a farmer in another country, right? And to think about it from their perspective. It's based on a real farmer that I interviewed down in the Rio Coco region in Nicaragua. And he was sharing with me that, you know, he's really excited about trying some of these new practices, but at the same time, he's only able to grow about 9 months of food right now for his family. So he's having to migrate 3 months out of the year. And if the program ideas aren't successful, then he's going to have to migrate more of the year and his daughters might miss a whole school year. So he was really excited about the program, really excited to get involved, but at the same time had some very real risks that he was facing through his involvement. So I think it's just critical that we recognize the risk that farmers are taking when they try something new. The fact that it's them that are working hard and sweating in the fields. And then last night we had a webinar talking about hurricanes that affected that same area that hit the Rio Coco area. We had hurricanes Eta and Iota just recently that dumped over 40 inches of rain there in a 1 week period. And what I think we often forget as people that are often in the role of international donors is that as quick as we were to give or to respond, the first responders to that disaster were the next door neighbors. We heard stories of farmers that opened up their grain banks and gave their neighbors 20 to 25 pounds of bean seed so they could start planting immediately after the storm passed and start recovering, right? And if we really are serious about building lasting solutions to hunger, those are the types of things that we need to be lifting up, and those are the things that we need to be investing in and talking about. And if we put ourselves in the role of the ones that respond to everything first, we might accidentally create barriers that prevent people from being able to help themselves or being able to help their neighbors. And ultimately that's gonna prevent them from being a resilient family or a resilient community.
So well stated. I want to make sure everybody knows that if you click on the link that's in the notes to the website, I'm sure you can find a place to sign up for the newsletter to be alerted to know when these webinars are occurring. I know that I want to make sure I get them on my calendar. And another important thing for all of my educators watching is to realize that the resources he's sharing, the webinars, the curriculum, the kit, no charge. They're here to support educators to change the lives of students. So it's not like this is a sales pitch for you to sign up for a subscription. It's like, we're doing this. Here it is. Check it out. See if it helps you in your classroom. Now, Ellie, I'm going to go back to you real quick because I'm curious. Here's what I believe. There's a lot of people watching this. It's like, oh, I don't know if we can do that. People will find reasons to tell ourselves no instead of to tell ourselves yes. What's your pro tip? What's your pro tip to a student teacher or a new teacher or someone who feels novice in this area to just pick up the torch and try?
Well, thanks for the question, Daniel. Very intriguing, makes me think a lot. But my first instincts is just, I think right now with this whole pandemic thing, it's become evident more than ever how important it is to, be connected with people and learn how to support our neighbors and love our neighbors. I think there's just a moral principle with that, whatever your religion is, that, you want to love your neighbors, and that's become more evident now than ever. And so I think we have this responsibility to kind of respond to that and to take action on some of these different things that we see facing our world, hunger being one of those. And so as a new teacher, I see this as a great opportunity, not only for my students to learn, but also for me to learn how I can be better responding to the different situations in the world. And so I think it's just a great opportunity to take action and to learn how to make this world a better place for all of us, particularly with working with Growing Hope Globally as well. They are just so helpful and willing to support me, not just with being a new teacher, but with being new to this program. They've been really helpful and have so many different resources available, and they're easy to understand. And even if there's something that I don't understand, they're really helpful with answering my questions and helping me figure out what the next steps are in order to make these projects be successful. So it's been a great experience, and I'm looking forward to continuing the process as well.
Awesome. I love what you said there about the importance for our own professional journey and growth and learning to be able to help our students. We have to invest in ourselves as educators to grow and stretch so that we can bring our students along on the journey with us, our members, our learners. So it's really clear for me to say this. It doesn't matter what context you're teaching. It doesn't matter what discipline you're teaching. The tools and resources here can be applied. And I want to make an offer here in the recording. If you want to make something happen, but you're unsure, so I can see someone saying, oh, they said they had to grow row crops. I'm teaching here in Philadelphia. Where am I going to grow row crops? Or I can see you building barriers. Here's my challenge to you. My challenge is to ask. My challenge is to send me an email, foster@psu.edu, and say, this is what we want to do. And I will work with Growing Hope Globally. We'll look at the network, because it's through the network and through collaboration that we can make amazing things happen. No one has to do it alone. It takes everybody. If I'm an English teacher, a social study teacher, or an agriculture teacher, or an extension educator, all of us can collaborate and use these tools to help grow the next generation of positive change agents in food, fiber, and natural resources. Well, I'm getting too excited. I'm getting that look from Melanie. It's like, okay, get off your soapbox. And I understand. We have two questions that we ask every single one of our presenters, and we want to go to those right now as we wrap up. The first theme is take action. So for that teacher, that educator, that learner watching this presentation right now, if you would give them one call to action, what would that call to action be? What do you want them to do?
I'd say just read through the handouts that are attached. I think that's a pretty straightforward next step. If you're intrigued by it, if you want to learn more, please check out our website. There's a monthly newsletter that you can sign up for. There's monthly conversations that we have. There's webinars. There's a lot of ways of getting involved there. I'd say just start by reading the curriculum and think, are there pieces of this that I can incorporate into my classroom?
I love that. Never be afraid to send that cold email. That's how we get successful. You got to have those people who wouldn't be afraid to email Jesus, right? Is that how that works out? Anyway, then the second question I do want both of you to answer. And that second question is, why does this matter to you? Ellie, why don't you go first?
Sure. Why does this matter? Well, I feel like I need to think about my answer. Can I think about it a little?
You can think about it. We'll go to Alex. Alex, she just pinch hit you. Your turn.
So I really care about this for a number of reasons, but as Daniel mentioned, I started off working in urban poverty in the Dominican Republic. And the kids that I was working with, their families had migrated from the rural areas to the urban areas in order to search for work. But they quickly found out that the skills that they had coming from an agricultural background didn't translate to jobs in an urban setting. And because it was a tourist town where I lived, it meant that oftentimes the kids were the ones that were sent to work, selling gum, shining shoes, those sorts of things. And it put them in this really vulnerable situation where they ended up recruited by gangs, sexually exploited by tourists, just things that leave long-term scars that there's really no way of undoing. And so for me, this is really exciting because with agriculture, we can help those families have the opportunity to provide for themselves and to avoid that need to migrate in the first place. If they have the dignity of providing for themselves, maybe their kids don't stay in agriculture, maybe their kids migrate to the city, but it's very different to migrate because you've had a bad year on the farm than it is to migrate because you've been able to go through elementary school, you've been able to go through high school, and you're prepared to find a career in the city. And so our hope is that's the condition under which families are migrating from rural to urban areas. And this is a small way for me to make a difference and hopefully keep some of those kids and people that I know that I've met over a decade plus of doing this in a little better situation.
Thanks. It is your turn now, Ellie.
All right. That's all right. I think I'm ready. So I guess for me, why this matters is just really based on my upbringing and my compassion for agriculture. I grew up on a farm, and my desire for people to just understand agriculture, I think, has always been something that's been on my heart. And so as an educator, this makes me really excited because I want my students to be able to understand how agriculture impacts us in different ways, and then across the world, being able to apply that to helping others too, just with our, our responsibility, I think, to help others and to ensure that our world is healthy and happy. I think we have a responsibility to that. And so I'm just really passionate about the opportunity to be able to share that with my students and to learn about that myself, learning about how to help others. And I guess that's why this is important to me and why I'm interested to dive more deeply into it as the year progresses.
It's wonderful.
Thank you.
Melanie, do you have any closing thoughts? As things that I forget, because I always forget the important things that the watcher needs to know.
No, I think now's the time to click on the documents that are included from Growing Hope Globally, to check it out, take that next step, like Alex mentioned. And also don't forget, if you would like to ask either of the presenters a question, remember that there's a Q&A pod here in this Whova screen. So you can communicate with our presenters and they'll get back to you about your questions. So with that, I will thank both of our presenters for joining us.